So what are we doing here, guys?
What would you like to talk about?
I don't know.
Welcome.
We're here in Bali.
Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. McDonald. Congratulations.
There you go. Finally. You said we're going to wing it this morning.
We are.
We are.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been, what have we been doing the last 24 hours, babe?
Be quiet. What every newlywed couple should be doing.
Spending quality time.
Spending quality time together.
Yeah,
Hands, long walks.
yeah. All that stuff. No, look, I think, from both of us, I want to thank you guys for coming out actually to attend it. But, obviously in particular, the ceremony that you did at the beginning, I think the feedback that we had from everyone there was, amazing. It was so different, I think, for a lot of people there in attendance. Mm-hmm. And we 100% achieved what we kind of discussed and set out for from an intention standpoint.
I'm glad. And you're welcome. You're welcome.
You even had my mum holding her arch rival enemy's hand.
I know, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I guess as we say that, that's the nature of what we're talking about, of what we're looking to do together.
Yeah.
Our intention is to dissolve barriers and walls that, keep people separated. Like we're here to bring people together.
And I think what I wanted to kind of touch on today is a lot of people are probably asking like how we all got here, right? A lot of people on social know you, they know me, maybe not as much right now, Alex and Loz, but they know us. And, I think, how did we get here, mate? How did that happen?
I think it was divine timing, right? It happened that you made your way, Clean Health Live happened.
Yep.
Right. And I saw Clean Health Live. And what I said to my wife was, I think we can do this Clean Live thing, babe.
Yeah.
She goes, what do you mean? So this thing that Hattie's been talking, like behind us, right? We live right behind where you did this thing. And as I was training the next day, there's no coincidence that you walked in the door.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the fact that you are who you are, you have the courage to do whatever it is you want to do. So the fact you came up and you said hello.
Yeah.
Right? I'm open to anyone who wants to have a chat.
Yeah.
And then for those that are watching, we all know like when we're in the gym and we're training around people that we also enjoy talking to as well. So we're training, doing the same sort of exercises that are near each other, probably doing more talking than what we are training. And then we trained the next day together.
We did, yeah.
And this is about 12 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This last 12 weeks has been an absolute roller coaster.
Definitely.
Right? But the energy and the frequency and the connection, the intentions, like the mission all feels quite aligned, which is why we haven't really questioned anything. Yeah. And it's like, if we're going to get down, you say it all the time, all in.
100%.
So we're all in with you guys.
Yeah, and likewise. And I think the thing, I remember, we met that first day, I'm like, let's, get each other's details and come back and train tomorrow. And, I remember coming back to Loz and I said this to you guys the other day, I'm like, we're going to end up doing something together. I don't know what, but we will. And it was funny. I remember you telling me that I think the next day we caught up to work out. And for whatever reason, we must have known where this pathway was going on a subconscious level. It triggered me. I had a massive argument with you, remember that morning? And I think you said you had something like that in the 24, you had some sort of argument or something on the home front too. So we kind of must have brought it out in each other somehow, releasing something. But I remember training in the gym and that member, she came up and she was like, oh my God, it's so good to see you guys. Like she was genuinely happy to see both of us together connecting. And then I remember she messaged me after it and she was like, this is so amazing what you guys are doing. Love seeing two kings together, really excited to see what the future holds. And I think, for that to happen within 24 hours and to kind of get public feedback that this is a good thing, I think that further reiterated things from my standpoint. I think I came back to Lauren and she kind of knows what I'm like when something happens and it's the right timing and that, like I go all in on it. And I mean, here we are, man. So fucking grateful.
Which is hilarious because what was she saying that she was, grateful to see?
I know.
Yeah.
Because there was there was nothing actually happening.
Yeah.
But she could feel what she, and she knew what she was seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And people always do know, right? They always know, they always have a sense of what they're seeing. Yeah. And I went back and I think one of the craziest things was, you just finished telling me about Clean Health and where it's at and your intentions with it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
one thing
When
you
we had
shared
brekkie.
with me was, you know, I'd actually like to do more of what you're doing, brother. And I was like, that's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Just after you finished telling me of how you're going to scale this thing over here. And I was like, okay, well, elaborate a little bit more on what you meant there. So I shared that with AB and I was like, I wonder if he really knows like kind of like what we do. And then when I got to the mental wise, so this is the third time I've been to Indonesia in the last couple of weeks, right? But when I was in the mental wise, the message that you sent to me was, hey legend, when do you land back into Australia? We need to impact lives on scale. I'm like, you're talking my language. Tell me more. And that's kind of how we ended up here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our first, well, actually, you can probably talk to this, Loz, like our first kind of interaction with Lino, it was the event that never happened.
It was back in 2021 where we actually...
2019.
21.
21.
Oh, was it? Okay.
We looked into it originally, but we hadn't actually gone down that path.
Yep.
And then in 21, we actually reached out
That's
about
right.
the
Yep.
couples retreat. But I had been following you for quite a while and actually looking into all of it, trying to get him on board the train of evolution. He was
I love how the tone of your voice like changes. It's like, that's train of evolution.
It was a little bit resistant to start.
I asked her this when we were sitting at Starbucks before, and I'm like, was it worth holding out for?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. As in me, waiting for me to catch up from an evolution standpoint.
That's when we set the intention for you to come to our wedding and set everyone into, their heart space, isn't it? Because we actually reached out to you. I think we were going through some Daine had been going through part of his, breakthrough / dark night.
Well, in 2019, I think 2021, I think that was more coming up for me towards that 40-year mark, turning 40 at the time.
You're having a midlife again.
Wasn't having a midlife, but I think, like I'd had my breakthrough / breakdown in 2019 and kind of come out the other end of that. And then kind of in 2020 gotten back into work 2021, but then coming into, it might have actually been towards the back end of 2021, coming into 2022, like kind of feeling as though like, I'm nearly 40 now. Is this it? Because I'd kind of gone through that journey. But, I think at the time, I was probably still doing a bit of the comparison towards other things, if you recall, which might have led to it. I don't recall, but you're the one who reached out, not me. So you tell the story.
I don't think back in 2019 you were ready to go
No way.
some evolution in a relationship. You were
no.
working on your own
Yeah,
self.
100%.
And I think, we reached out to do a couples workshop and to try and kind of, evolve as a couple and get into that. And I think something happened and, we couldn't make it. And I reached back out and then life gets in the way and we just kept
Was it you fell pregnant?
moving forward. No.
No?
And life got in the way, but then here you were, kind of. No?
I think the coincidence is insane. The fact that back in 2021 that the intention was to come to one of our couples workshops, and we said it the other day when I came over before the wedding.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, we've actually got something better in mind. We won't come to you in a couple of years' time. You'll come to us. You've got to come to us.
do a
Like we're
private
busy.
workshop with us
We
prior
can't
to
fit you
our
in right now. But we will meet again, like further down the road for much better reasons.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just, I think this is why it's so important to allow life to unfold, because that's what the struggle was back then. And a couple of years later, here we are, and now you're actually married.
Yeah.
And people try to push the envelope. It's like, they want something, let's get it done now. But like, for me in my journey, for all of us, I'm sure it's just kind of something that's just had to roll out. Even for us, getting married, like we had 4 or 5 roadblocks along the way over the last 7 years of being engaged, to the point where we almost had one literally 2 weeks ago with your kidneys and that playing up and stuff like that. She was on a 10-day course of antibiotics.
It's all right. I was in hospital Googling how after appendix surgery.
Yeah, because they wanted to pull her appendix out like 9 days before getting married. We sat there in the car like thinking, far out, the universe is making it hard for us. But I think the more I've let go of shit in general in life, like the more stuff flows in, for sure.
And I think since this whole relationship has started, there's been so much coming up for all of us. Like we've all fallen sick.
Yeah,
All
100%.
All four of us.
Yeah.
Pretty much from the beginning. The more this conversation unfolds, something that just keeps on, coming to my mind is how much of an activator you are. Right? And you'll openly say that to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? You're an activator. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, right now I'm actually getting activated.
Yeah.
Right? Because like what we're setting out to do and all the interactions and the things that have happened, leading up to this, right? Like this is nothing small that we're talking about.
But look, I'll say this, and I was actually thinking about on the way here, like you've activated me too, brother. You have, like, I told Lauren this and she's heard it multiple times, like, fuck, like I've fallen in love with this woman again the last 4 days.
Tattoo?
No, I'm considering a tattoo. Let's just pull that. Let's just pull that back.
No, hold on. His phase 2 of evolution is letting go. You should see. I went this morning at breakfast and I sat at the head of the table seat. Like, it's not a head of the table seat. It's just a fucking seat. Let's be honest. It's a seat unless you've got some sort of,
robe and a crown.
Yeah, that's true. And I went and sat there and I just looked at him and laughed because, that's been part of his evolution as a person is just feeling comfortable in everything that he's accomplished and not having, anything to stereotype or to, to kind of present as it. A lot of people will use certain things because it makes them feel something, and you don't need to use anything to feel anything because you are amazing. You are great at what you do. It's like that proving. There it is again. No, but like that phase 2, you definitely have helped us so much from that aspect and standpoint of just,
Well, I'll pinpoint it, right? Like my journey from, 2019, my dark night of the soul, suicidal depression, nearly not coming out of it, being medicated, the whole thing that goes through it. Like it's probably like when you met me and you didn't know as much about me, when I started talking about this stuff, did it surprise you?
No, not in the sense of the amount of stories that I've heard. However, what I really appreciated was your ownership of it all, right? And your willingness to talk about it. I guess surprising, it takes a lot to sort of surprise me, right? But what I experienced was a really big character, right? And I'm like, this guy's a lifer. He's living. Right, and he's living and he's talking. I can jam with this, right? Talk to me, brother.
And vice versa.
Yes,
vice versa. But I
talk.
think, like for me, that stage it went through, I had to kind of work on myself. It kind of evolved over the last few years, where evolved on working on myself as a parent, as a step parent, and that kind of all transmuted and translated into business, which has just grown exponentially because I've leveled up as a person. But the one final bit that had to really be leveled up is, for me, as a husband to my wife.
Did I have to wait till the last?
And I definitely think like just our interaction and engagement the last few months, and definitely just being here, stopping. I think you said the quote of the trip so far. You said, "You two guys talk a lot. Just shut up." Remember? Yeah. You just stop speaking, and it was true because we're so used to just talking and doing and directing, and we just both of us, and we wouldn't change it. But I think
yesterday we just sat in it.
We just sat in it, and it's just like falling in love all over again. So
listen to you two. Who are you?
Yeah,
this is amazing.
Oh, we're not going back. Like phase 2 is here. We're not going back to what we did before. Like there needs to. It's not even. I don't know if balance is the word. It's just more.
Present.
Just not as fast.
Probably is, but a balance is a little part of it because not the problem is, but when you're a certain personality and you sit in something, it's very easy just to continue on. It's hard for people, that chameleon type, right, to transition into different scenarios. It's easier for someone like myself, being a mum and that, because you have to at times for your children. But like for someone like yourself that is very, business driven, that does, their mindset works like that, it is going to be, it is trying to find that balance at times for you to be able to snap out of it and go, okay, I've got to turn into, Daine the husband, or Daine the, just sitting in it now rather than just on the go.
Yeah, I'm just being fucking Daine. People can love it or not. At the end of the day.
And haven't we learned that?
You know. But I want to talk to, like, obviously, you know, a lot of people that would be listening to this, you know, through Clean Health and stuff like that, they'd be like, okay, cool, we know these two, but you two, right? Like both of you guys, and I know, Alex, you've still got quite an active role as an exercise phys. Like, talk to us. I'll start with Alex first. Talk to us about your background, because I want to kind of give some preface for kind of, you know, a lot of people know that we've come from the PT background, stuff like that. I didn't even know, for example, that you had worked as a PT for as long as you did, and then you kind of transitioned into what you do now.
Yeah.
But I'll start with you, mate.
Growing up in Lennox Head, I had a really active lifestyle. Like, I was in the surf or I was playing rugby league and rugby union, and that took me all over the world before the age of 17.
Okay.
I toured Fiji, Tonga, France, England, and Wales playing both rugby codes. And I was helped along the way by a lot of like really good physiotherapists in the past, because I had a lot of injuries, obviously.
Yeah.
When you're a 15-year-old kid from Lennox Head, there's no Polynesians in Lennox Head, shockingly enough. But then when you go to Sydney,
You found
There's a lot.
I'm surrounded by them now. But when I would go to Sydney for these like higher level representative teams, like the opposing under 15s second rollers from Penrith were 110 kilos and 6'3". So your body takes a bit of a beating. And then when I finished high school, I stopped playing rugby, fell out of love with it, and went to uni. I went to uni for a very long time. I have an undergraduate degree in exercise science, an advanced year of study in neuroscience and advanced neuroscience and biomechanics, and then I did a master's degree in clinical exercise physiology. And then I've been working in what I guess you'd call high needs clinical exercise phys professionally. Lots of war veterans, lots of former service people. And just, I used to make a joke that I was like a goalkeeper between people and the edge, because I've had many clients over the years who were on their last legs. They've had back pain for a decade. They're about to get 3 discs replaced. They hear about this guy on the Gold Coast. They drive down from Brisbane, and these people can sometimes no longer need to get total disc replacements. They can learn to use lifestyle interventions to help themselves, movement, diet, all the things, right? So I created AB Physiology, and as much as AB is my initials, that was never the intention of the name of the brand. You said balance before. It's the art of balance,
There you go.
or the art of basics physiology. Right?
My first business was DMPT. Really original.
But that definitely
That was definitely Daine McDonald. That was definitely Daine McDonald. But over the years, a good friend of mine, my business partner in my Lennox Head clinic, he started a CrossFit gym a decade ago, and I helped him start that. And with CrossFit gyms, like the morning and the afternoon pumps, but in the middle of the day, nothing's happening. So we just ran allied health. Between 10 and 4, we'd do allied health consults, and in the morning and the afternoon, we'd run CrossFit classes. And then I started doing BJJ 8 or 9 years ago. And then I competed and won state and national titles in that at the lower belts. And funnily enough, when all this stuff started to happen, I got my black belt like 4 weeks after we met. And I thought that was beautiful timing.
That's awesome.
Because it was a level up. And it's funny, no one gives a shit that you do jiu-jitsu until you say you got a black belt.
We're all safe.
And then everyone starts to go, oh, wow, you got a black belt. It's like, you have a brown belt. I'm like, what an ugly color. Why would you have a brown belt? You know? And I'm like, okay. But the black belt works really well. And then like I said, I worked in a part of the health world where algorithms and social media things don't help these people.
No.
The joke I make, or not so much a joke, but the phrase I say is I worked in the dark. I worked away from the light and the spotlight and the attention, and just did the hard yards. And I could help people that were, quote, unhelpable. And again, it was through, with AB Physiology, the art of basics: breathe, sleep, move, eat. If you do those 4 things 80% well and have fun 20% of the time, you'll be baffled to find how far you can go. Whether you're a 91-year-old World War II veteran with a broken back, you know, or a 6-year-old girl with
Well, in essence, you've been working in the less glamorous part of the fitness industry. You know, I for one, and it's not to blow smoke up your ass, don't you love that saying? But you know, obviously at Clean Health, we've got multiple PhDs, world leaders, Lane Norton, Bill Campbell, like all these experts as part of the Avengers. And, you know, all of the courses and stuff that we've built out over the years, like I've firsthand worked with them to structure it, create it, audit it, edit it, present it, and package it. Like, there's you and one other out of all the others, and I'm not going to say any names, so I don't want to offend anyone, that looking at the initial stuff, I'm like, I don't even have to do anything. And so I think that's just testament to, like, you are one of the industry's best kept secrets, brother. But not anymore.
No.
All right, not anymore. But just, chiming in on that, because I think it's important to note, like, you know, the industry that you've been working in, or the section that you've been working in, it's actually, I think, definitely aligns in with what we're, coming here to work together on. It's about serving others. It's not about fucking winning a comp prep. It's not about a bodybuilding show. It's not about winning a first medal. It's about helping people fucking live.
Well, that's kind of how Lena and I met, right? A colleague of mine was speaking at a men's mental health event, and I often don't go to things of that nature. I make inappropriate jokes about many parts of that world because, again, when you work in the trenches in the dark with people that truly are suffering from all kinds of mental turmoil, the things they talk about and share at some of these circles really don't correlate to the world I worked in. It's probably the nicest way I've ever said it in my life. But I went, and when I got there, my friend introduced me to Lino because he was the breathwork guy at the event and I was his breathwork guy, and then Lino can tell his perspective of that story. But then we connected, like, let's breathe together. We went and sat on the beach at 4:30 in the morning. We breathed together, and then we hung out for 4 hours talking. And we joke and say if there was a podcast mic between him and I, the first time we ever met, we would have got 4 episodes out straight away.
Yeah.
And that's sparked what's been 3 years of this collaborative approach between AB Physiology and men's medicine. And then we were doing all this chatting, and then Lena just goes, "Stop. What do you do?" And I go, "I fucking help people." And he goes, "Same here." We high-fived. Now we're here. So it's always the shining light has been helping people. And then when I met you both for the first time in your beautiful home in Terrigal, and we sat down and you showed me your whiteboard with your 2026 and 2030 goals, I was like, if that's what we're trying to do, I'm all in on that. And I think Lino and I can help you achieve that faster than everyone else.
Definitely. What's your part of, like, you guys connecting? I mean, you guys heard us at the wedding. Everyone knows our connection, but how did you guys come together?
He came to a Movember event that I was speaking at, and I said the same thing to him that I said to you as well. I said, like, there's a point where we have to breathe, right? Because people are just different after they breathe.
Yeah.
So as I was speaking, breathwork is going to always be part of absolutely everything I do. Even though it's not the thing, even at that men's event, I delivered like 3, kind of what we did at the wedding.
Yeah.
Right? 3 minutes of breath. And then 3 minutes of breath, who people are before that and at the end of that, completely different. So Alex come up to me at the end of that and he goes, "Bro, that was awesome. We got to connect." I'm like, "Cool," right? Because at the beginning, he was sharing with me about his obsession with breath work. I'm like, I think I like this guy. So we went and we breathed. And then we talked about a lot of ideas after that, through coffee and catch-ups. We talked about coming, together to build things, to do things. And I said to him, "You know what, before we actually decide to go into business together, once again, we have to breathe, right? So we have to go up to the mountain, right? And I need you to breathe with me at sunrise." And he goes, "Okay, cool." So we went up to the mountain at sunrise and we breathed for about half an hour. And what I got to take out of that was our ability to fall into synchronicity with each other. I didn't tell him how to breathe, he didn't tell me how to breathe, but we breathed in sync with each other. I just pressed play, and we breathed, and we paused, and we breathed, and we paused. And the synchronicity that came out of that was without words. And I was like, I think I can work with this guy.
You guys are like a married couple.
I know, I was thinking.
All right. Because, I mean, you should talk to that. It's one thing. I mean, it's definitely the last few days, but going back to when we first met.
Not being like a married couple.
No, the breathing. Before you think about it, like, I don't know if you've thought about that recently, but we, like, back in 2013 when we got together, I mean, breathwork and meditation in my mind was for Byron Bayers, right? Was it?
It's like,
Right?
represent
Like, I'm not doing that woo-saw shit. Like, what's that, right? But I remember, so Lauren and I, when we started, dating, we would just sit there, we'd be lying in bed, and all of a sudden we would be in coherence. The breath would just connect in, in that state, in that relaxed state. And I think for both of us, I know at least for me, Lauren was the first woman that I'd ever been, first partner in my life that I would fall into that state and actually fall asleep with cuddling. Because none of my, my ex-wife, any of my previous partners before then, it was never something, when I look back, it was never something where I could actually fall asleep holding them together. Whereas with Lauren, we were just fucking like, how is that for you?
Yeah, well, it was the same. Like, we do it. We used to sit in it more. So
Yeah.
it's like how you said the other day, just shut up, stop talking and sit in it. We used to sit in it, like, any time we spent together,
Yeah.
we would sit in it. That's why even through the hard times, we'd sit in it and
Yeah.
we would breathe in coherence and we would just literally cry. There was like, but we wouldn't say anything. You wouldn't need to say anything. You look into someone's eyes and soul and you just
know.
don't even, that's why you say,
And-
don't talk, because you
and I
don't
thi-
need words.
And I think that's the beauty of breath, because like even when I was in a state where to me, I associated it with some sort of activity that was for a certain type of characteristic because because I was very judgmental, I was intrinsically doing it. I just didn't label it.
Yeah.
And through intrinsically doing it, just, the state that we would get into, of pure love, of coherence, of joy, of freedom, of bliss, all these type of things, it came through the breath.
Well, you talk about labeling it. What are the things that you guys said? I remember clearly when you came over and sat in our office, the things about breath, and you were like, the core. Like, what were the core things that you said about breath? Just how simple it was. Like, how
Well,
simple.
it goes with you wherever you go.
Yep.
But the thing that we love about it is it has no equipment.
Yep.
You are the equipment.
Yep.
There's no barriers.
There's no barriers. Everyone can do it. It's accessible to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And I think about our relationship and how anytime I've wanted to, I'm a creator. I love creating things, right? I consider myself a bit of a container or a space creator.
Yeah.
Whatever's needed, I'll create a container or a space to provide the environment for what needs to happen. And when I think about creation, he's always on my mind, right? I'm just like, and whatever comes up for me, I'm like, hey, bro, I was thinking this, right? Even after we've had our conversation, I'm like, hey, bro, I was talking to Daine, right? We got to go down and see him. We need to go breathe together. And he's just like, yeah, cool, bro. Yeah. I think I said to him the other day, brother, what do you think about going to New Zealand? He goes, why do you do this to me? Why do you do this to me? I'm like, because when I think about doing things, and we spoke about it from way back in the beginning about soul and science. It's like, brother, you're the soul, I'm the science. And there's always a point where people want to know more about the science. And I can talk to you about it, but guess who talks about it better? The scientist.
Yeah.
Right? So this has become our relationship, and breathwork dances between the both of us, and we deliver it from these two perspectives. Right? There's a time for soul and there's a time for science.
But you got to
Complement each other very well.
Yeah.
But you got to have that, because I think, even from my own journey of getting into meditation, and I want to get your guys, I guess, thought process on the difference, if any, between breathwork and meditation, because people label them in two different buckets. I think it's the same shit personally, but people label them. When I kind of wanted to look for something to help with my healing, the only person I was willing to learn from at that time was a scientist. I wasn't open to just learning from someone that was just coming from a place of soul, because I was in a certain place. So I was attracted to an Alex style person that is more scientist, maybe not as much soul. And that's what cracked me open to go down that pathway through which that journey, like, sure, I'm still Asperger's at heart. I still love my science. But to me, ultimately, I'm 10 times more soul now than scientist.
Say Asperger's at heart as if it's a passion of yours.
It is. I love it. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful that I went through that part of my life, because now I can bolt in the scientist to the soul to do both.
When, as you're sharing that, I'm reminded of when we went to the mountain, when we jumped back in his car to make our way down. I'm just like, I like to ask questions. I love to ask questions. I love to know more about the person that I'm talking to, about your life and what you're about and who you are. And the more he started to share, I'm like, bro, you're actually quite spiritual, huh? And he goes, shh, don't tell anyone. And I'm like, oh, he doesn't want anyone to know.
You know that Byron Bay thing you were trying to avoid? I grew up there. I try to avoid them too. Right? Because at the same time, it's the same reason that I would avoid a lot of these like group mental health talks because I call them circle jerks.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of people getting around, circle jerking each other and really just helping themselves. And it landed, you figured out what I was saying. Yeah. So, and at the same time, like, you can't disconnect breath work from that deeper under the surface part that we can call soul and spirituality and things like that. And like with all the other sporting things I've done, I've also done yoga for 12 years, and it took me like 4 years to even pay attention to the breathing cues within yoga, you know? And with back to the meditation versus breath work thing, it's just a language game. And the problem I have with the scientists and the PhDs and all these people is they are so busy bickering over the words and what this and that and this. And like Lena says, just shut the fuck up.
Yes.
Just breathe for a little bit. If you need to contextualize it as breath work to jump in, call it breath work. If you need to contextualize it as meditation, do that. Because at the end of the day, if someone like an alien comes down and lands and sees someone meditating and someone doing breath work, they'd have a very difficult time telling you which one is which. But the camp, people fall into camps too much. Like, and to the point where like, and it's a frustrating thing because
well, a lot of people
that connection.
And a lot of people are more like reserved to go from zero to meditation than zero to breath work. Because meditation, it's like, a monk, breath work, okay, maybe a Wim Hof. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like it's kind of I've never seen the difference personally.
I consider breath work a great access point to meditation.
100%.
It's a gateway drug.
Yeah, I remember the first
Step
time
one.
trying to do meditation, and it was impossible. So I used to force myself to sit in front of a wall. And my monkey mind would just go crazy. I'm like, man, I suck at this. Right, I'm never going to be able to do this.
You sitting in front of a wall.
And I'm doing anything I could do to not distract my mind or to be stimulated by anything. So I'm like, I'm just going to face the wall or face the mirror and just close my eyes, and my mind would just go all everywhere. When I first experienced breath work, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Right? And the more I sort of understood it, the more in love I fell with it. And what I've learned is through my experience and journey with breath work, it's actually helped me meditate.
Yeah.
Because there's so much involved in breath work that there's times where you don't want to dive into any form of breath work. So peeling it all the way back to meditation is actually comfortable.
But it's like you say, how simple is it? You've just got to breathe. Like, it's all about the feelings that it produces, right? Why do people meditate? Why do people breathe? Why do we talk about it? Why do we trying to, trying to grow people on a different level to the importance of it? It's because it's how it makes you feel inside. So, I think sitting there and people using breath work to get into meditation or to not have to listen to it, you're working on the breath and the inner feelings, and you'll sit in it, right? I think it's the most important thing that people miss. They overcomplicate it sometimes. And yes, you can make it as complicated as you want, but like,
look, I'm trying to write the textbook right now, and I can tell you right now it is.
It's very complicated.
There's a lot in there, but at the same time too, my entrance into breathwork was through a performance perspective. It was all about performance, and it was all about how to apply these breathing techniques to regulate your heart rate and recover in between rounds, because I like to work with, like I said, my clinical work and the work that paid me has always been in that kind of dark, but then I've always kept my ear to the ground with performance.
Yeah.
And I've applied that personally to my own competing within grappling. And then I've worked with some MMA fighters and professional MMA fighters in this country. And I make a joke and say, like, I Van Damme it, like one foot on the clinical truck, the other foot on the performance truck, full splits.
Yep.
And then if you cover both ends of that spectrum, everyone fits in the middle. Like, if you can help the deepest improve 1% to peel them off the floor and then send them in the right direction, goals. And when it comes to that higher end performance, that 1% difference is what matters. And why I love combat sports is because that fluffy bullshit doesn't survive once that cage door closes.
And we giggled about this yesterday, because yesterday morning I went to a men's group yesterday, and I was like, bro, do you want to come with me to this men's circle? And he was like,
circle jerk.
no. Right. But he went to jiu-jitsu instead. And at the end of that men's group that I went to, I had a giggle to the men that were there. And I'm like, what's funny? I asked my mate if he wanted to come. And he was like, nah. But he's like more than happy to be in a room rolling hot and sweaty with a room full of men.
Cuddling
and I'm
a bunch of men.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And then I was up at the pool and he rocked up to the pool and he's like, I was like, how's your class? He's like, yeah, cool. And I told him what I thought. And then I said, but you guys don't talk. And he goes, yeah, we cut all the fluff.
Yeah.
That's how they sort it out.
Yeah.
Right? Get in close and put yourself in the pressure cooker situation where words will not serve you. Right? You have to process this, right? Like in real time.
It's just like playing chess with human body parts and dire consequences, you know? That's what's fun about it because again, the world as it currently stands has a lot of fluffy nonsense that doesn't help anyone move forward. And I like to, as much as I can, not have that shit involved in my life either. And I try to do things that are tangible, accessible, real, helpful, you know, because people can feel a little bit lost and hopeless at the moment. And I would love to help less people feel that way. And the breath is this, we're trying to create this thing together that bridges the gap between the woo-woo crew from Byron Bay and also the two sciencey people. Like there is so much science in breath and we know some wonderful breath scientists who are elite at what they do, but they may not have the facilitation
you need that
piece.
for
They can't deliver the thing. They have all the science, but they can't deliver the experience or the language or the thing that makes it more accessible. And that's why the model that we've been creating and the shapes and things, we're trying to create a tangible shape and understanding of something that you can't see. But it's so important because we've all trained dehydrated. We've all trained without eating enough food. We've all trained with terrible sleep. But if I block your nose and tape your mouth, you will not train very long. And then that will be all you care about. The minute your breath is taken away from you, there is nothing else in this world you will think about, to the point where even if you compromise someone's diaphragm from a position, your body will sacrifice everything else to get your breath back. And then our kind of goal is if you can make your breath harder to lose, it's harder to lose your composure. And when you do lose your composure and or your breath, you can bring it back down again and you're there. So one thing that my partner and I have gotten really good at over the last 5 or 6 years, and akin to you, I could actually fall asleep. When I first met Layla, I would wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I slept so well. And she's like, isn't that normal? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, you just calm me down. Like, you have to just be there. And I'm like, you know, but with all that stuff that we've been doing there, everyone has their blow-ups, right? But the most amazing thing is whenever we do have our blow-ups, the coming back together has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, to the point where it's like within a handful of minutes, either of us can be heightened, come back down, come back together, hug, make up, I'm sorry, love you, and we move forward. So instead of having half your day ruined over a often petty argument, gone.
Because you've got the tools to change the feelings inside and to actually bring yourself down. Which brings it to the fact that with breath work, there are so many different types of breathing. Right? You can breathe to get yourself hyped up. You can breathe to get yourself, you know, tired and go to sleep. You can breathe to do so for performance. Like there are so many different types.
Or to be intimate.
100%. Yeah. I think, and that's what our intention is to pass on. I've been calling it the Swiss Army knife of all tools. It just can do all these things. Depending on what you want, it can serve you in any given situation.
But you have to know. You have to know what that is and why. And that's why when we've looked at our model, we've broken it down into like 3 broad categories of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to activate, we're trying to regulate, or we're trying to release. Blow off some steam, find some balance, or fire the fuck up.
And you think about, like when you said before about being intimate, it brings me back to 2019 when my wife and I, we were first trying to have a child. And she had a miscarriage 6 weeks after falling pregnant. And instead of starting my day by myself, I would start my day with her instead. So instead of going and doing my own breathwork practice, I would start my day with her and share my breathwork practice with her. So I would lay just like you guys are, holding hands. And when we breathe in and out together for the same tempo, it creates heart-mind coherence. So I would just hold her hand and I would play the frequency of love, 528 hertz, and we'd just breathe in and out together for 100 breaths. 3 months later, she fell pregnant with our son.
Well, it's interesting, the last 24 hours with the level of coherence that we've had, we've both said that, like, had we not practiced safe sex type of practices,
It's like I would have
put a baby in her. For sure. But even you said that too. Yeah.
It's that feeling.
Yeah,
'cause
we're
you know
100%. When you're so coherent, with the last 3 pregnancies, actually, well, the last 2 not with dunks, I don't think. Oh no, with dunks too.
Every one of them.
We've known
every time.
that night, like as in within 30 minutes. Yeah, and even I think the last 2, it's not like it was, in per se. It was just kind of being there in the shower and kind of realizing and saying, like, I remember the last time with Layla, I said I was seeing a baby floating around in, like, whilst I was awake, I was seeing it, and I think we both just knew, like, yeah, So, but again, it comes back to breath and coherence. It's an activator, which I actually want to, two areas I want to go to. Firstly, with you, how have you used? Because I think, mum of 7, entrepreneur, everything that you've got going on. You traditionally haven't had the time to get up, do your morning routine, go and breathe and do all that type of stuff. But you in your own way have had your own, I guess, subconscious breathwork practice now for 15, 16 years. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I haven't actively practiced breathwork, so I'm quite excited actually to start going on this journey with you guys. I haven't actively done anything, but what I used to say to Daine, especially like with the babies and all the kids I've been getting up every 2 hours, or even, Maya was every 1 hour. I was cluster feeding all night through the night, every night.
They'd sleep in the bed. Yeah.
But he's like, how are you feeling? And I was still functioning. And you know why? Because I was using breath work while I was feeding, while I was laying in bed, that yes, I was awake, but I actually wasn't. I was I was being restored as well at the same time. So you can actually lie there awake but not awake and still kind of in a space where you're getting restorative energy and you're not feeling exhausted and drained. I think it's that trying to shut off your mind, trying to use different types of breath. I wouldn't even know what I was using or what I was doing.
I was about to say it's
scientists would
like
say
yoga
it's
nidra.
NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. So your brain's in
like theta,
similar ways.
I can literally just sit there with my mind with everything down and just breathe and just be present and breathe and literally I've spent the last 7 years
you've done
literally like that for half the night, all night, every night for the last 7 years. And I feel well rested in the morning. I'm fine.
It is actually NDSR, because I would always, when she would explain it to me, then after everything that I've learned, over the last kind of 5 years of doing it myself, I'm like, well, you're going into like a theta brainwave state where you're between the gateway, you're not there, you're consciously unconscious. And like obviously when you bring your heart rate down and do all that, you are getting a lot of the restorative benefits. But she would do it for like hours.
Half the time, my Apple Watch or my Weltery would say that I was asleep, but I'm like, I'm not asleep. I'm there, my eyes are awake, or I can lie there and just close my eyes like I'm not asleep. But
the level of restoration is quite insane.
Oh, it's amazing.
And it's like, if you ask my opinion, it's the most powerful and effective one.
Yeah, it is the one. It's the one that people need, right? Because we're a tired society because the world's been pretty crazy for the past 4 or 5 years. Like people are a bit shook up, and like we say this thing that if everyone can come down 2 points, like say your nervous system has a scale from 0 to 10, 0 you are asleep, 10 peak panic and fear, right? If everyone had tools or this little Swiss Army knife in their pocket that allowed them to bring themselves down 2 points, like voluntarily. Like if you're sitting at an 8 out of 10, it's hard to focus. But if you come down to a 6, we're laughing, right? That's much more easier to navigate situations. And because our cognition and the cogs in our mind, when they start to spin, they can become in this like negative feedback loop. Breathwork can kind of like force in a positive feedback loop. And the cool thing about learning applied breathing practices is that they're self-manifesting behaviors in the sense that when you start doing it and get better at it, it starts doing it on its own in the background, right? And but you have to get through this like 6 to 12 week window of applying yourself consciously to it, to then it falls into this unconscious, because breathing is largely an unconscious behavior. So we can't voluntarily impact and unconscious behavior, but we can use our conscious application and skills to set that kind of default breath network to start to make it less chesty, more lower, more through the nose, and things of that nature. And then
what tips would you give someone? Because people struggle, right? People will sit there and say, when I think that I need to do that, I'm going to get anxiety over the fact that it's not happening. Like for sleep example, people will lie there and people will be like, okay. And you used to do it as well. You used to be like, I need to breathe, I need to calm. And then when it doesn't happen straight away, they get more anxious and they go from, instead of being a 10 to an 11. What tips would you give people to be able to actually just sit in it?
You go first, G.
I'm imagining when you were cluster feeding, that you're sitting there patiently with your children, breastfeeding them, mouth closed. Can you remember what it was like for you? And just sitting there, just being with them. That's LSD. That's
pure coherence.
Pure. Right. And also, right, co-regulating with your child as well. Right. That's simply all I'd recommend. Close your mouth and just long, slow, deep breaths.
And I sprinkle on the details of when you close your mouth, you have your tongue on the roof of your mouth, but you relax your teeth. Because your tongue creates like a suction cup on the roof of your mouth, then your jaw can relax, your throat can relax. Because imagine if your jaw is clenched, and everyone's got bruxism today, which is like clenching and grinding their teeth. So if your jaw and throat and everything is tense, any nervous system signals coming down, they're going to hit tension straight away. So your body's already like, fuck, right? So by setting this oral facial posture of this gentle lip seal, this tongue on the roof of your mouth, and this relaxed jaw, now when you breathe in and out your nose, there's space on the exhale.
It feels different. It feels so much
there's so much more space in the back of your palate.
The benefits that come, there's so much actually going on just from this very simple task of closing your mouth, tongue to the roof of your mouth, breathing in and out your nose. Because as we breathe down the back, that brushing of that breath down the back of the nasal passage will help release more nitric oxide.
And it just puts the brakes on already, because if I go, or I go, it was the same breath.
I find for me, actually, and maybe you could answer this, and I don't think we should, I don't want to digress too much because I want to come into TBR, but when I use that technique, I find I can shoot the air more up into here. And
is that when you're meditating?
Yeah, and like start activating more.
But that works with your meditative
almost like
channel work.
It's almost like a tube, like from the anus pretty much, all the way up to your pineal.
But your tongue, your diaphragm, and your pelvic floor are all connected. So those like main three bandhas, they call them in yoga, like seals. Right, so those seals are all interconnected, which is why that tongue positioning can help brace and all these other kinds of things, because it just sets the seals or the locks. And if all those everyone talks about core and all these kinds of things too, but it all kind of gets set up here. And when your jaw and is out of alignment and it's got problems, that's why like Cara Webb, I forget her surname now, she's in the CrossFit game. She's one of Australia's best female CrossFitters. She had to actually get braces as a grown woman to help align her jaw because it was causing neck problems for her, I believe. I could be wrong here, but there's so much going on at the face. And my father's also a dentist and an orthodontist. So I've been picking his brain for the better part of 7 years around things with kids, because I hate seeing children suffer. There's very few things that make me more angry than children suffering. And when it comes to the need for braces and things like that, like correct oral facial posture through development can help maintain the bridge and help reduce the need for braces, reduce allergies, improve like energy levels. There's nothing worse than seeing these young kids who are getting diagnosed clinically with things like anxiety and depression. Then you look at them and I'm like, you can't breathe, you can't sleep, you have bags under your eyes.
The list of benefits is just like ongoing.
It's insane.
I had multiple issues from when we went and saw a holistic dentist 10 years ago, and he turned around and said, ideally you would have your whole jaw broken and realigned. Like my overbite is ridiculous, can't see your teeth. I've had braces nearly 3 times, but ended up getting veneers last time because I was like, I'm not going through it again because my mouth just moves back. Permanent teeth removed, couldn't fit in all my teeth, but it was all jaw. It was all based off my jaw structure and breathing and everything else. Can I ask one question? What are your guys' thoughts on mouth tape? Such a big thing these days.
I get it. The nose tape, the mouth tape, I get it. However, I feel the least things you need to have a quality of life, the better.
100%.
Right? Like if your quality of life is based on taping your nose, taping your mouth, and having all the other tactics in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're missing the point.
The temperature at 14.6
degrees.
Look, yeah, right. Like I think you're going to really struggle out there in the real world.
Yeah.
And like in everything we do is about supporting people to live greater quality lives. Like think about it right now. We're in Bali. And if you are so hell-bent on making sure that your water comes from here, it's alkaline, it's all the rest of those sorts of things, you're probably going to struggle to actually experience the world.
He knows what it's like. He's gone through phases of trying to do so much stuff that it actually causes more anxiety and
when I was
someone.
going through that period, 5 years ago, like I was sleeping 90 minutes a night unbroken for half a year, right, with everything that was going on. And so I was at a place of desperation. I had fucking white noise, temperature, eye muffs, fucking frequency music, supplements, drugs in the end.
At that point, it's whatever it takes.
And it actually made it worse.
It makes the anxiety worse. You go somewhere to be present, and it's like we've got to go
but
home. I need my environment.
that was definitely a journey to get to a place of acceptance. But it made me even think back to when before you came on the altar on Thursday, and we were doing the ceremony at our wedding, and we were getting everyone to breathe. Everyone was sitting down, but obviously in my case, and the boys and that were up on stage with this, it was a standing breath. And I don't know if you saw, I closed my eyes and I was breathing. And I thought to myself as I started, I'm like, fuck, when I started breathing, I would not have been able to do a standing breath. Because sometimes, like people's breath work, okay, I must be sitting there like a fucking monk in the cave, the guru's chiming it, right, music, like getting into it. Whereas now it's like, I think, fuck, I could do it anywhere. I could activate it anywhere, but I've put the reps in.
Yes.
I put the reps in. I think that's where people, like you made a point before, you said when you first started meditating, you looked at a wall, right? Like you remember when I first started meditating and breathing, 5 seconds in, anxiety. Like,
This is awful, I can't sit here anymore.
like there was no way I thought that I'd ever be able to go from like that to, I think my PB was like 5 hours straight, right? Like, but I had to kind of go through the process of doing it, which kind of leads me to why are we here, right? TBR, what's it stand for, gents?
The breathe room.
So let's talk about it. What is it? Give us each of you one-liner.
We're bringing breathwork to the fitness industry, right? My perspective is where the whole idea originally came from was if breathwork was in the hands of all people, I think the world would be a different place. And how is it possible to make that happen? I think the fitness industry is probably the right vehicle because fitness is societally accepted, right? However, it's the only thing that doesn't exist in the fitness industry. And then I opened up a room in a warehouse to breathe my clients, and I told AB, brother, setting up a breathe room. This is what my thoughts are. I think wouldn't it be great if you could just go to the gym and you could access it. And he goes, bro, say less, I'm in.
That's generally how our conversations go. He tells me things, I'm like, okay, cool. It's like he's like within what we're doing, he's the chief visionary officer. So he has the vision and I'm the chief design officer. I have to come behind and then put it all together for him to make sure it makes sense. And it's
That's pretty much how we operate.
Yeah. You and I are very similar in that way. My mind is always thinking of ideas. I get excited by so many things, right? And I do my best to try and sort of filter a bit of my excitement because it probably could become a bit confusing. It's like I'll tell a whole bunch of things. He's like, which one do you want me to actually think about, bro?
Yeah. Give me like.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I work because if you give me a target, I'll get it. Right. So if you don't give me a target though, I'll fuck around and get a bit distracted, But if I've got a goal or a target or whatever, and that's why that's one thing I appreciate about grappling, and I don't wear the gi anymore, I just do no gi, but I immediately get into a flow state as soon as we start rolling. I haven't even got to warm up anymore. You should warm up, but I don't. And I can just, as soon as we bump hands and we start doing jiu-jitsu, nothing matters. And I'm so locked in and goal orientated, and I'm flowing. And when you get to a certain degree of skill or mastery, whatever you want to call it, like I do things and people go, what was that? And I go, I don't know. Like it wasn't a technique necessarily. I was just feeling where your body was going. Yep. And I realized if I push here and pull there, you're going to flip over and I'm going to get in a more advantageous position. So I think I want to help, how I help Lino here is he brings me these visions and this goal and this target, and then I reverse engineer how we achieve that vision or target. And when we were sitting down and we were sitting there and he goes, this doesn't exist anywhere in the world. I'm like, yeah, I know. And he's like, that's sick. No, what are we going to do? And I go, look, we just got to keep working on this. And I literally have thought for the longest time. I was like, we just need someone with capital and passion to back us, and we're on. And then you run into each other at EMF.
Well, for me, I'm not waiting for anyone. So I'm like, we're working anyway.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 2 years.
So I'm like, yes, I hear you. That sounds great.
That's the analytical mind.
Right, yeah. But we need to start working on this now, because I'm not waiting for someone to show up in my life to make this thing happen, right? So we'd go down to the warehouse. I'm like, okay, this is what the situation is. This is the model. This is the formula. This is the problems that we sort of need to overcome, and we'd flesh this thing out. And
on butcher's paper all over the walls. We'd have like 5 sheets of butcher's paper. Great.
Put it on the wall, because I need to be able to see this thing, because it helped make it feel like it's real. Okay, cool. We need a guinea pig. My mate who owned the warehouse. Bro, can we use you? Yeah, cool. What do you need? We need to come downstairs. I need you to breathe, right? And we'd run this thing through with him. And we did this for months, right? And then we catch up. We talk like a couple times a week, and we just talk about ideas and all those kinds of things. So like the breathe room for me is about putting the power back into the people's hands, helping people help themselves. And if we think about the fitness industry itself, it's one of the very first ways that people help themselves. Like if I want to feel better about myself, like when I look good, I feel good, exercise and nutrition is the most accessible way for anyone in society to try and help improve their lives. What I've come to learn since transitioning out of the fitness industry, and even like towards the end of my last few years, is I think the fitness world has somewhat misled the world on how to live a quality of life, right? If I exercise and I eat well, and I be a good person.
All sorted.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
And it's just not true. There's more pieces to the puzzle, which is what I've come to understand. And I guess breathwork is one of these tools that currently doesn't exist as across the whole industry, is a tool that people can access anytime. Doesn't matter who you are, anywhere you are. This whole time we've been doing this, right? Anytime I haven't been saying anything, I've been sitting here, breathing in and out my nose, right? Regulating myself, being here, being more present. And after I'm regulated, I start to feel my energy expand. I'm like, oh, I'm excited to be here.
And this is something I think, like, after the process I went through, even with Clean Health, like through our curriculum, we started to integrate in things around meditation, lifestyle practice, all this stuff, because I was like, as a business, I'd kind of come to that same conclusion too, because I'd spent the first 15 years like lifestyle, go outdoors, be a good person, nutrition, training, you do those 3 key things and you're 100% sweet. But I'd gone through periods of doing that and I wasn't sweet. I'd gone through periods of not doing it and I was still, not sweet either. It was only actually when I did my form of breath, which in for me, labeled as meditation, came through that kind of, that channel, that life actually changed for me. And so the last kind of 5 years now, we've been integrating it in drips and drabs, master classes, this and that. The amount of students I would have come up to me, meditation, breath, how does that work for you? And kind of explaining how I've used it to transform my life. It's every other fucking week.
Because we've tried to label it, and I know you don't like the word mental, but it says mental fitness, right? The fitness industry has become very superficial. And so for us and for going through all the courses, integrating into the master classes, it's been about giving people that next layer, that it's not just about looking good in your body, it's about feeling good in here. And I think that's the big thing.
It's about what they, like as the students, the type of knowledge that they need to have to be able to impart onto their clients. Because if I was in career one for me, which was PT Daine, if I knew what I knew now about all this stuff, A, outside of using it on myself, B, every single client I had would have been doing it. Right?
I always I work with like young athletes sometimes, and I go, if I could go back in time and talk to 14-year-old me, I wouldn't be like, invest in Apple. I would be like, hey, see that hill over there? You had to run up with your mouth closed.
Yeah.
Right? Like learn how to breathe through your nose, learn how to run breathing through your nose. My word, you'd be baffled. That's all I would have told 13-year-old, because I had exercise-induced asthma, I had allergies and could never breathe through my nose. Right, so I had to go, and I have a deviated septum from getting hit in the face, playing rugby so many times. So I had a teething period to be able to do all the things that I can do now. It was really uncomfortable, and people can go, oh, I've got a deviated septum, I can't breathe through my nose. You actually can. You can breathe around that dysfunction to a point. If you can get it fixed, get it fixed. But at the same time, it's not nasal breathing isn't for me. Nasal breathing has to be for everyone, because it is the tool we were given to breathe with. This is for breathing. This is for eating and communicating. That's about it. Unless you're above 85% effort, your nose can fuel you, because you very rarely need more air. Unless you are in an altitude room or you are underwater, you do not need more air, right? And in the altitude room too, it's just to simulate that, right? At the same time, more isn't better with breath work, in the sense that if you take, I think it's 12 breaths a minute, you get 2.5 liters of ventilation to your alveoli, to the little sacs. If you take 6 breaths a minute, it's 5.1, I think. So you nearly double the air arriving at where air exchange occurs if you breathe less. So it's like less is more, which doesn't exist in the fitness industry, which we're going to have to bring to them in the form of TBR.
But it's also because lifestyle, like growing up, you were always taught, and I'm not sure if it was the same for you guys, to not breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. You were generally taught to, breathe in through your nose,
take
out
deep
through
breaths,
your mouth.
yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's funny when you talk about it, because as I said, I've never done any breath work, but I inherently always breathe in through my nose and out through my nose. I only ever use my nose.
It's because you're an old soul, baby.
My experience in working with Alex has been, when we came into start hanging out, was that I was able to get more out of myself. My breathwork practice improved because I became more efficient. I'm like, you know what? I think it's gonna be good to keep him around, because he actually improves the quality of my life.
Yeah.
Right. And that if we think about breathwork on a spectrum, the way that the space is sort of laid out is that there's so many different, circles. What were you saying before? I guess groups.
Yeah, little niches.
Yeah. Camps, different camps.
Yeah.
Right. Depending on who you go to, you'll have a different experience. The perspective we come from is, hold on a second. We're all doing the same thing. This is a gas exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. However, the way that you manipulate the breath will influence what the experience is. And what we're wanting to do with TBR is package it and present it in such a way that it's accessible by all people. Because not everyone's dealing with deep trauma, right? There's a time and a place for that. That's what men's medicine is for, right? And as much as I love men's medicine, and it's an extension of my heart, and it is, like my third child, right? It's not accessible to all people. So what about everyone else? And this is where TBR kind of comes in.
I think that's we've known, I think ever since this phase of our journey started 5 years ago, that there had needed in our ecosystem for our movement, there needed to be something that kind of catered to this, but it just hadn't kind of come yet. We'd started sprinkling it in different classes, different courses, different Clean Off Live. I mean, I was talking about this stuff at Clean Off Live, right? And kind of layering it into our community, but no solution had presented itself, right? Obviously, we met the next day and here we are, so now we have a solution. I think for me, that's what I'm really excited about. We've got 500,000 students in our ecosystem now that we can kind of actually start getting them out there as micro activators in their own communities, their own online businesses, and whatever that is. Because I think coaches, whether it's a nutrition coach or PT, they're arguably playing one of the most important roles in most people's lives.
100%.
I think we all know, as kind of former coaches ourselves, or still doing active clients in your case, that you learn more about your clients when you're coaching them. A lot of the times, because unfortunately people don't have, really close relationships as much anymore, then their partners do.
Well, that's how Lino transitioned into where he transitioned.
Yeah.
Because you started realizing, like, I am your PT, but like I'm
Your life
talking
coach.
to you about your life. I'm a lot more than about your reps and
whatever
sets,
term you want to.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was, how do I actually help people? At this point, I'm 15 years in the industry.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I was already doing online coaching. Do I really want 20 years next to my name of delivering meal plans and workout programs? I'm like, I don't know if that really makes me feel progressed.
It's funny you said 15 years. That's 15 years for me too.
We've been in the industry about the same time, which is interesting.
Former student of the AF.
Backstory, yes. Yeah, you'd purchased the education school that I went through.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
21 years ago now.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess picture you're the coach, you're the trainer, you're doing a check-in, or whether it's with one-on-one or you're working with your group, right? You're doing your weekly Zoom call, you're doing your check-ins, and your clients' stats aren't what they should be, right? They haven't been tracking their meals, they haven't been tracking their training, and they jump on and they tell you that they have, right? Or even if it's a new client and they're telling you what their eating habits are, and you're hearing where they're currently at, and you're looking at what they've written, and you're like, this don't add up, right? And they're now going down this rabbit hole of excuses and lies, right? Our goal as coaches and trainers and leaders isn't to demonize our clients, right? No. We're there in service. Now, if you've got the skill set of breath work, in that moment, you can go, let's pause, right? I'm going to get you just to follow your breath for a second. We're on a Zoom call, you hit the music, right? All I'm going to get you to do is to follow your breath right now, right? You can just close your mouth, follow your breath into your nose, down into your belly, up to your chest, and back out again. And just what we're going to do right now is we're going to self-regulate, right? Have you been, and just use your head to nod, if you've been feeling a little bit dysregulated, life's been getting a little bit busy, hasn't it? And they go, yep. And right now they're breathing, right? We're going to exhale with a few sighs and back to your normal breath. How are we feeling right now? And your client goes, yeah, I really needed that, huh? Now tell me, what's the honest truth? I haven't been tracking. You're right. If a coach or a trainer has the skill to be able to now regulate their client also has the ability to feel like they're being seen and heard as well. That I'm not just here and I'm going to, get ripped into because I didn't follow my meal plan, I didn't stick to my training program, maybe I did 50%, maybe I did 80%, right? But like we're here, we've got a relationship and the whole goal is about improving, the client's life, right? But if your client doesn't do that, where do we go from there?
But even just take what you said then, you take that, you translate that as a coach, you might be thinking, listening right now, yeah, that sounds good, but you're saying that as a master in the field. Well, you know what, take that, all that Lino's just done then is improved his client's compliance, which now equals more results, which means that you're actually upholding your term of the arrangement with your client from a contract and an energetic standpoint, which is getting you more results, getting more business, like the whole thing. It's almost like a best kept secret as a tool for a coach.
Absolutely.
That most coaches aren't even aware of.
But there's the honesty check.
In my whole
it's like a ninja move.
Career was not aware of this at all.
Yeah.
My first experience, I'm like, how has no one told me about this? How did I not know about this?
Do you ever get anyone resistant to and how do you break through if someone is resistant? Because it's just about letting go, right?
I think setting the table first, having the conversation, the rapport has to be there.
Yeah.
Right? And as your clients are talking to you, right, you're starting to do the math. Yeah. Something ain't adding up.
But you know what will happen? Anyone that's listening to this right now, you're not just listening to it because you follow Clean Health or you follow Men's Medicine or whatever. You're listening to it because it interests you or you've never heard of it, but you're listening to it anyway because you meant to, right? You actually meant to hear it. So I think as a coach, you will start attracting people that are going to vibe with this as it is anyway. And no doubt a bunch of your clients right now are going to be open to it. It doesn't need to be labeled from a standpoint of, okay, we're going to sit down for our 5-minute meditative practice.
No.
Close your eyes, frequency music, chimes, let's go. It doesn't need to be that. Like, perfect example, at the wedding, like the boomers in the room, right? You were able to get them into a state of actually doing it, even though, let's be honest, like, certain people there are closed off to it.
Well, that's what I was asking. How do you get people to do it? But I suppose it's setting the tone, right? Because the reality is, once they do it, they will feel it. So the hardest part is getting someone just to take those first few breaths, because then they will feel different.
Well, the really important thing we've been trying to work on is the language that we use within TBR, right? When it comes to the group classes, when it comes to anything else, we're looking at managing the language. And there's the melting away of the veil that Lino spoke about then, but a gateway into breath work for some people more likely might be the application on the gym floor. So if you're doing intervals, you might do 3 intervals and not cue their breath and watch them be short of breath and not even get their breath back before the next round. And then you go, cool, we're going to learn this thing really quickly. And then you teach them that and they go, oh my God, I'm not puffing anymore.
Zip your mouth, tongue, like.
So like when you learn these regulation techniques, then they go, because then you can look at their wattage, say on an assault bike and go, you've got to hit this wattage, and they can't quite make it. And then you learn how to bring them down, and they're going to get more juice from the squeeze out of their sessions because they're able to come up, come back down, come up, come back down. And that's why the application within, let's say, an acute recovery principles, that's one of the first things I teach all of my MMA fighters, because they have 60 seconds between rounds. And if they can bring their heart rate down 20 beats more than their opponent, they have this insane edge. And I've had some of my pro MMA guys drop their heart rate 60 beats in a minute in between rounds. And if your opponent doesn't have that, you both finish the round at 170 beats. You start the next round at 115, he starts at 140.
And
there's the edge.
And those are like those, breathwork technique hacks, right, that you can use and just deploy in a session, whatnot, to get buy-in. I would actually look at that step 3. I actually look at the whole process as, if you're listening to this right now, you need to fucking do it yourself. So what I mean by that is, you as the coach, you need to achieve a level of certainty and mastery around it yourself and practice to get time under the bar.
That's how we've built the course for the level 1, for self.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing that comes with that is more certainty, right? Because once you build the confidence, you get certain. I kind of look at, to answer your question, what would be some ways to get people to do it? I look at it like a sales process. If you believe in your product because you've experienced the product, you as the coach / micro leader, you're setting the intention, you're setting the energy, you're holding the space. And that, like for you, when you hold space in a room or do something, or for me or for any of us, we do it from a place because you believe in it. You have certainty in it. So like that intention, but that doesn't come from just, I woke up one day and I fucking know it. No. I had to experience it. Yep. So I think for anyone listening right now, do level 1, do it 3 times.
The beautiful thing,
learn every bit of it and do it yourself, apply it for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, 2 months, and start layering it into your clients and build up that confidence. Because I think once you do, you can go into it like a sales process. I always teach in, sales, it's like I'm setting the intention that this person's already converted. Mm-hmm. And sales is not just selling a product, sales is selling an idea. Sales is selling information. This is what we're doing as coaches.
When it comes to the level 1 too, which we're like calling self, which is for coaches and trainers and all those things, it reminds me of like a yoga teacher trainer, because like a lot of people will go and do a 200-hour yoga trainer to never ever coach a yoga class. They just want to learn the practice for themselves more deeply. I think that's what this TBR level 1, outside of coaches, if you have a really passionate athlete or client who loves it, they can jump on and do the TBR level 1 and learn it just for themselves and learn all that depth for themselves. And that's what I think so wonderful about that level 1 specifically, is that there's so minimal barriers to entry. And then when we get into the level 2 later on, that's what the class timetable comes in. And with that one too, I think that's so beautiful because you can have 3 generations of people doing the same class.
Let's go through the level 1. I think it's a good place to kind of start on that. Like, what would you say are kind of 5 key learning outcomes? If I'm listening right now, I'm like, look, this sounds interesting. Fuck, look, all these people are talking about this. If I come in and do the level 1, what are kind of 5 key benefits that I'm going to take away as a coach?
Well, the first 3 are activation, regulation, and release. Right? We're building it specifically for the fitness industry, even though that the intention isn't trauma release.
Yeah.
The fitness industry is not built for that. We still believe that it's important that that skill set is there, right? Sometimes we've got something bigger that needs to move.
Yep.
And I think that the last thing that you want is that your client is there and you can see there's something like deep there and you're like, oh, look, here, go see this person. When in that moment, you can actually help blow off a little bit of steam there. You can help them have a bit of a release, right? It isn't going to solve the actual problem, but it might buy them some time. So the first 3 benefits are activation. Sometimes people struggle to get out of the house. A lot of people, I don't really want to go to the gym today. Well, we've got some activation tools.
So it's even like activating their mood, getting them up, getting them getting them down.
100%. So I guess it could be at the beginning of the day, could be that 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You've had 2 coffees already. More coffees isn't going to help you, right? Maybe you've got extra coaching calls in the night, breathwork practice in the afternoon. You can either use it to turn it up, or I guess NSDR too, like you were talking about before. Then regulation. And I guess we sort of touch on mental health there as well, nervous system regulation, mental health, flow state in that section there, and provide some tools there to help support them when it comes to not only regulating themselves, and I guess if we talk about 5, the extra 2, the 4 and the 5 would be these techniques and this training and these skills are not only for you, they're also for your clients. And that's whether that's online or in person.
Well, I think when we're, all there at our house, level 1 self, level 2 other. I thought that was a really kind of clever way we all put that together, because I kind of look at the level 1 like, we're not working as coaches, but we'll do it. You know what I mean? Because it's just something for ourselves to kind of refine what we're doing. There's people in our social circles that aren't in the fitness industry that we know will benefit from it. I think overall. Talk to us then about the level 2.
Let me jump in level 1 first though, because you said 5, right? So if we've got activate, regulate, release, right from the last 2, the integration and the facilitation.
Okay.
So interesting thing as I'm building out the textbook is like to facilitate something is to almost impart that knowledge without putting yourself in it. That's the art of facilitation, giving them the skill but not attaching it to you. And then integration obviously is the thing that's the hardest seemingly within that mental health space. And I really love how on one of our calls you brought up the idea of mental fitness. I find mental health as a word extremely frustrating, because when you think of physical health, you think of diet, exercise, all these positive things. And then when you think of mental health, it's anxiety, depression, it's double speak. It's this upside down word that when you understand where the nature of words like that come from, it's a slippery slope to a bad place. And mental fitness is a much better way of thinking about it, because even if you are really, really unfit, if you do the right shit at the right time and the right steps, you can achieve a degree of fitness you may have never thought was possible to you. Which is why I love it so much. And the integration piece is what the mental health industry, I feel, is missing, because our Australian government has spent $20 billion on mental health since I think 2018 to oversee a sharper decline across the board in everything. And it's got to a point now where it almost seems more money, more problems when it comes to things of that nature. And that's why I think the 5 keys from that first thing are activate, regulate, release, integration, facilitation.
Yeah.
Finally, they'd bring it back to basics, right? The simple thing.
Absolute basics.
Yeah. So the activate, regulate, release, that's the breathwork part. But having the knowledge isn't enough. You have to have the skills to be able to facilitate this too. Yeah. It's one thing to take someone through something, but the aftercare is super important as well. So we're also mindful of duty of care here as well, which is why integration is a massive piece on this.
I think the mental fitness theme I love. We actually have a business that I established in 2020 when I went through everything, called Mental Fitness Global, right? Registered, trademark, the whole thing. It's just sitting. Yep. Yeah. It's just sitting there dormant. I nearly.
What's the next phase?
That was this is phase 2. I was already planning phase 2 back then, right? But why mental fitness was so important for me is because when I went through what I went through, I was diagnosed with mental health. I was diagnosed with type 2 bipolar. I was told, here are these antipsychotics and depressant medications. And that's it. You're done there. You're done there for life, right? It was a label. I was given a mental health label. I remember and I used to say to her when I was on this stuff, and I'm not suggesting if you're on any of this stuff right now that you come off. This is purely my own experience. Gosh, I sound like a fucking lawyer.
Has its place in time.
It has its place in time, but I remember for me, in my own personal experience, I remember feeling as though every day like my soul was being suppressed.
Yeah.
I felt
the
like
way they manage bipolar is they cut off the top and the tail, so you live in the middle.
Yeah, and
you don't feel intense lows or intense highs, but life is the roller coaster between those two things if you can dance it properly and not fall out of the roller coaster. But there's a time and a place for all those things, like you said, but at the same time, how they work is interesting when you go and actually look into it, right? And because a lot of my clients over the past 8 years have had a laundry list of medications, 60 to 70% of which are just medications to manage side effects of their other medications, right?
They're Band-Aids.
And I always use Indiana Jones references, the sandbag and the crystal skull. I often tell people that like these medications, that's the sandbag. Like it's keeping the ball from rolling down the hill, right? We want to take that sandbag, that Band-Aid, that thing, and put the crystal skull there. Put the valuable, precious thing there instead, which are these skill and lifestyle-based strategies to chronic problems, because I'm a chronic health expert as an exercise physiologist. That's our kind of banner. And chronic is anything longer than 3 to 6 months, depending on who sets the target. And the single most effective approach to all these things are lifestyle interventions. The other things, the Band-Aids, the sandbags, necessity.
Honestly,
keep your head above the water.
People ask me for this thing, if you could only do one thing, what would it be? I'd be like, breathe meditation. Because for me, the mental health label to transition from that place to this place, it was through retraining my mind and having a fitter mind.
Yes.
Breathwork ended up being the foundational tool or pillar to that. It was only through finding the breath that I was actually able to start rewiring my mind from you can deep dive into from a neuroplasticity standpoint and all that stuff, which is all very clinically proven now in itself.
That wasn't even in my undergraduate. I finished my undergraduate in 2011. Yeah. They won't even talk. I needed neuro and advanced neuro, and they were just touching on it. Right. Yeah. So it's relatively new, and it's been so powerful to help people understand you can. Because when I was going through my undergrad, I was like, whatever happens up here, we can't change it. No. It is what it is.
We're still very backwards though. And you would see it, you've done some talks for students and schools and things like that. Even at schools, you've got anxiety, you've got ADHD.
Let's not jump into that deep rabbit hole of anger.
Exactly, right?
And as you guys are speaking, what I'm thinking is that for all of the listeners or the viewers that are listening, the intention is that you don't have to become an exercise phys, or you don't have to go through 2 decades in the industry, like we have. However, you're getting these skills from people from the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all, what would the term, I'm a commercially woo-star kind of guy. if I was to kind of blend it in our own ways, I think all of us are. So I love the fact that level 1 is, that whole mental fitness theme, because that's, I think, been a really important pillar for us on a personal, but then also on a business level the last few years. Talk to us about level 2.
That's where we evolve it. And I guess there's a point where you mentioned and touched on performance a lot. We'll touch on performance at the first part of level 2. And then level 1 really is about, I guess, one-on-one for you and for you and your clients, whether it's online or whether it's in person. But when we expand it to numbers, we're talking a different ballgame now, right? The skills of what it means. Just because you're a personal trainer doesn't mean you can deliver a group fitness class.
Yep.
Right? 2 different people.
It's very different to coach 20 people in a squad at the same time compared to 1.
Yeah,
correct.
100%.
Yeah.
Same thing when we were dealing with breathwork. You have to manage numerous amount of people now, right? And they're all going individually through their own thing.
Got quick cues.
Everyone turns up with a different things happening under the hood. Yeah. And people can be very oblivious to what's happening under their own hood. And they can rock up thinking that they're fine and do 10 breaths and be wailing. And then what we've looked at with the level 2 is others and high performance. So within that, there is this one, some more in-depth one-to-one, and one-to-many type coaching. There's programming, how to actually program some breathwork things into what you're doing. And then the little cherry in the level 2 is like the TBR timetable class, which is classes that fit into a gym timetable. And we've kind of structured them around like an AM, a PM, and an Empower. And the AM class is the equivalent of a coffee. It's designed in steps.
Or a new tonic.
Or a new tonic.
Yeah, or the last one. To bring you up in steps, right? And the PM class is to meet you where you're at. Classic Psychology 101, meet people where they're at. In the PM class, it starts with some more high up type breath work, and then it steps down to have you leave that class. And then the empowered class is a short, hard, fast shot of breath.
And if you think about the fitness industry, when we deliver workouts and programs, for our clients, we're not just saying, hey, look, they've come in and their goal is to change their physique and they want to work on the upper body, and we get them doing squats. Right, you've completely missed the objective here. The intention of what we deliver with the breath work is that it's goal specific. Depending on who you're working with, what time of day it is, what the intention is, will influence what we should do.
Yep.
And then we want to equip you with the tools to be able to work with your client more specifically, whether that's one-to-one or one-to-many. So in level 2, there's a point where, well, how do we turn this thing up? Well, we're gonna dive into some performance now.
And I think it's not like one of the questions I've got asked a lot about over the last few years, like, when do you do it? What do you do it differently if you do it at that time of day? I think these are great points, because it's not just about the one and one-to-many. It's also about like, how can you deploy this to literally enhance and optimize your entire fucking life?
100%. We want the skills that are being learned for you to use it when you need it, whenever you need it. Whether it's online, one-to-one, one-to-group, if you're doing level 2, whether it's in person when you're in the gym floor, mum walks in, she just dropped the kids off and she's flustered, right? Your ability to try and execute the plan that you had, right, is highly compromised at that point. But if you've got the skills to help self-regulate her, and then now you can roll out that session.
You reset the tone.
100%. And you've got the skill set
It's
to
the
be able
skill
to do
set
it.
that like you don't need much of it. Like you can sprinkle a little bit here, you can sprinkle some of it in between intervals, and you can finish with a little bit of mobility and drop them down, so that said mum who came in flustered, you've taken off 2 points. Now she can train, which brings her back up again appropriately. And then we finish bringing her down, then she can go pick the kids up from creche and be like, oh my God, I've blown off my steam. I've brought my heart rate up, but regulated myself back down. Because imagine if you didn't have this, they've come in already up, you've brought them up even higher, and then just sent them out hot.
And she's now becoming conditioned to training like that.
Right,
Right?
I think it's the way for like trainers that are listening right now. It's like, would you like a tool that allows you to help your clients sleep better? I'm just going to start on that one point. There's a multitude of points. Yes. I know from my own personal experience, and you'd probably have a bit more of the clinical research behind it, breath work, the more you do it, the neuroplasticity effect. I mean, like I used to be such a pretty light sleeper with noises and things like that. I can fall asleep now in a lounge full of fucking kids running around, because it's just the whole thing of breath work and doing it over time has changed my ability to now detach and just switch off.
Regulation.
It's regulation. Do you want your clients to sleep better? Do you have clients that struggle with going up and down emotionally? Are they kind of lacking motivation?
And this is the thing.
We've got primers, we've got activators.
I'm sure a lot of trainers, and even in your career, most personal trainers and coaches find themselves being counselors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your client walks in, you know more of your client's problems than their partners do.
Yep.
Than their parents do.
Half the session's training, half the session's gas bagging.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like this tool can help collapse a lot of that. Right. And we can elevate the energy, the frequency, the level of consciousness there, and the conversation that gets to happen from that place.
I also want people to like not hate cardio. Like when I go to my girlfriend trains
Got
it.
your work cut out with her then.
I know, but there's a lot of people, right? So whenever I
cardio.
go to my partner goes to one of the changes, and she loves the cardio classes, but they're really hard and they're really quiet. The strength class, there'll be 40 people in there. The cardio class, there'll be 10, right? And for me, cardio is uncomfortable and it does make you red and look all silly. And then a lot of the girls that go there do very much care what they look like. But at the same time, if you can do cardio, and because cardio is all about your breathing is the most important thing in cardio. If you can do cardio and still get uncomfortable, but not get so dysregulated from cardio that more people attend cardio-based classes, I want that to be a thing, because if strength is great, but strength without cardio, you're not functional. We're talking about bodybuilders. The big boys, they're strong as shit, right? But they walk up 6 flights of stairs and they're short of breath. I want this TBR programming that we're building to have people not be so afraid of cardio, because they know that their breath gets harder to lose, right? And when you do lose it, you get it back. Same as the emotional loss of breath, the assault bike Tabata loss of breath. Let's have those things. Remember that, like, what's happening under the hood, your physiology doesn't give a fuck if your heart rate's up because you had a fight with your partner, or if your heart rate's up because you just did an interval class. Physiologically speaking, it doesn't matter.
Or even when you're sick. I remember when we were doing the breath work in our backyard, and I had literally kind of come off a bout of pneumonia, right? And just, talk to us, because we went kind of through a few things, and I found at the end of that, because you introduced some techniques I hadn't done before, I was like hurling up the phlegm
clearing
more than I normally would.
Yeah. So we talked a bit before we went in there about how, like, emptying your lungs completely in like a lung clearing breath and doing it in the shower when it's steamy and stuff, is because we have these systems built within us to help us clear our lungs, right? But what happened 4 years ago is, like, coughing became akin to, like, killing the elderly. So people stopped coughing. So I told you when I was at your house, like, I've had so many young women come to me with persistent coughs after a cold, flu, chest infection for weeks to months, and their doctors have just been giving them more rounds of antibiotics despite the fact that there's no signs of infection. And I've taken, almost all women have taken these young women through clearing techniques of, like, pursed lip exhaling in a steamy shower, things you'd teach to someone with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or emphysema. I'm teaching that same technique to a 24-year-old elite touch football player, because she was coughing in our session. And I'm like, that's your body trying to expel this off your chest, but because you have unconsciously, this is an unconscious thing. This girl didn't realize she hadn't coughed properly for 4 years until I'd pointed it out to her. And then she messaged me 2 days later and was like, oh my God, I haven't got a cough anymore. I was like, good job. 2 mornings of clearing, done, right? And when it comes to the different techniques, we ran through just some pulsing type stuff and playing with this active passive type breath, which is literally the first technique you learn in level 1, because the level 1, the self, comes with 9 techniques. And the level 2 is about how you take those 9 techniques and program them one-to-one, others, how you take those techniques and apply them in a high performance setting. And then again, this TBR.
That was one of the things, like, for me, like, I've done thousands of hours of breath work now, right? But I've done it specifically for 2 core intentions, 3, the whole time I've been doing it. Not once has it been from a performance standpoint. It's been from an intention standpoint. It's been from a mood standpoint in terms of lifting myself up. And then it's been from a calming myself down. So I've only used, I guess, techniques in that context. I haven't used it for anything else. So for me, kind of coming into that, I was like, fuck, this is awesome, because, with these techniques, you can now use it for a variety of different things. Like, far out for people listening right now, they might just want to pick this up so that they can get someone's VO2 max up. They might want to just pick this up so that they can get their client breathing better whilst they're lifting, which is going to translate to a better 1RM.
100%.
Whatever that might be. So it doesn't need to be, I think, for trainers out there that are right now like, oh fuck, that's a lot. Like it's a bit Byron Bay-ish. Like I can actually just use this to actually help my clients perform better, like Olympic athletes. Because you can, sure as shit, those Olympic athletes that we've been watching in France recently, there's a portion of them that have coaches that are clued in on certain breathwork techniques that are helping them in that space, but they're using it for that context. Thing I love is that, like, if people want to go down the rabbit hole and use it for, more spiritual practice or whatever it is, they can. But if you just want to use it just to improve the physical body, you can jump into that too.
I think it's to recap, level 1, is really about you and your one-on-one with your clients. That's learning the modality. Level 2 is about expanding further on that with the performance, with greater numbers. Let's say you're running a retreat with your clients. You've got a big client base and you're running a retreat with them and you want to add greater value to that experience. So you're going to deliver a breathwork session that amplifies. They've already done the training. They're eating well. They're training well. They're having a great time. It's a beautiful location. Now you've been able to spice it up by bringing in a breathwork session to your whole client base. And they've had breakthroughs, all the rest of that sort of stuff. And then with the group model is being able to take this modality and program it. How can we actually take this thing and how can we structure it in such a way that we understand how to turn it into structured breathwork sessions? And also, we've also got our own ones.
I think in many
set ones
respects
as well.
between the levels too, it's almost like it's getting periodized, right? Like I was listening to you guys talking about
very, very much so.
the context. It's like you got beginner, you got intermediate, and then you got advanced. And it's like, if you look at, like you mentioned, there's 9 kind of techniques in level 1. What's in level 2? How many more do we kind of spruce onto that?
There's no more techniques in the level 2 because we've covered literally everything in the level 1. But then how you, so for example, in the level 2, they take the timetable classes, because for me, I'd love to be able to travel somewhere and go, you know what, I want to breathe. Is there a TBR class on a timetable in a gym near me? And I can go, you know what, I can go down the road.
Let's actually talk to that.
Yeah.
Let's actually talk to that, because I think we've spoken about the physical benefits, the mental benefit, all that type of stuff. But, there's also the commercial benefits.
Yeah, so it's currently the way that people can access breath work, and especially considering we're here in Bali, the only way to sort of do it is if you either work with a breathwork coach or if there's an event on, right? But what if I actually need to access breathwork during the week? It's been a challenging week. Like my nervous system is jacked up and it's Wednesday, right? I've got a few more days ahead of me. If there was a TBR class that was at the gym that I'm part of, that was on their timetable, I could book into it just the same way that I go to yoga or to a spin class or a Les Mills like body jam class.
This excites me.
And this can help meet my needs, right?
Yep.
As opposed to having to wait for the rest of the week. The challenge right now is that there's probably a very small percentage of gyms around the world that have breathwork as part of their timetable.
We've literally had this issue recently, even with your dad, wanting to get him into breathwork. There's nowhere to send him.
Online.
There's online. Like,
Right.
A lot of people won't go online. It's like we said before, people that want, how do you get people into it? It's just being amongst it or being with someone.
Well,
They
the
need to
question
do it in
becomes
person.
is what are you even getting? Which is
That
why,
was the other thing.
right?
You don't know what you're
we
walking
don't know
into.
what we're getting, right? So
it's
the way that
also
we-
because it's not standardized, right? So,
which is what we're doing.
We're setting a standard of this is a class standard. And if you go to an AM class in Sydney, Melbourne, Byron Bay of all places, the Gold Coast, you'll get an AM class that uses similar language, similar music, similar structures.
And when you go to Samanyak,
Yeah.
like I kind of look at it, the level 1, level 2, it's almost like, the P&C and the PPT certs that we did back in the day with the gyms. What that is like, we standardize from a nutrition standpoint, from a training standpoint, these certification programs in place of the Cert 3 and 4 in fitness, because we found that if you did a Cert 3 and 4 here, likewise with breathwork, it's all these different stuff.
Yes.
And so when we got to a place where we'd had years of experience under the bar, hundreds of thousands of people walked through the door, and we developed a program and methodology, which is kind of like what we're doing here, we created these certs which kind of brought together all the best of those into what we felt, not saying it's fucking perfect, because nothing ever is, but it's fucking probably the best stuff out there in the market worldwide in that space for what it is. I feel like that we're doing that again right now when it comes to breath work.
That is our intention, because we've learned from all these wonderful people, and I've been writing a part of the introduction. I've been going through some of the history of breathwork and things like that.
No doubt people that have helped you and
so many. But then there's like the ancient, the old world, and there's the new world, and there's all these different camps in the new world. And what we're trying to take, because at the end of the day, it's inhaling, exhaling, or doing neither, right? And how you make those ones and zeros line up is how you can kind of achieve the results we're trying to achieve. And we're standing on the shoulders of giants that have all come before us since before prehistory. And all we're trying to do is create shapes, systems, patterns, and understanding that Someone drops out of school in year 10, wants to become a PT, wants to do this, they're going to love it and get so much out of all we have to offer. And at the same time, if you've got a PhD in health sciences and you do our course, you're going to love it as much as that year 10 dropout.
Would you almost kind of compare it to, it's like in nutrition, you've got low carb, high carb, isocaloric, fast. You've got all these systems in nutrition that all apparently do the same thing, but they're all like saying, no, this is the way, that's the way, this is the way. We kind of, with our nutrition kind of course, we brought that all together and said, here's all the science behind them all, here's how you apply them, but what, out of those 9 techniques, you as the coach and what your client needs, you'll figure out which one you want to deploy and coach and guide them into to get the result.
Correct. 100%.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
If you have an understanding of the field,
I think
you know how to play the field.
A lot of people wouldn't even realize that there's all these different schools. Breathwork is just one thing, not realizing that there is actually different schools, different trains of thought. And I think that's what's, to this point, because obviously we're changing that now, has probably a reason why it hasn't been done before.
It's been a barrier to entry.
Yeah.
But why maybe it hasn't got as much traction within the health, because this should already be in our industry.
Yeah.
It should be here.
I think the reason why it isn't is because as easy it is to do, it's just as easy not to. And it's extremely hard to believe this simple, performance, right? This simple tool has so many multiple applications, right? And has the power to do so many things. Like how? I remember that's how I felt when I came out of my breathwork journey. I'm like, what just happened? Yeah. Right. Now, our intention isn't to be taking people over to that. However, when I deliver a class in the gym, whatever someone's going through, right, that's what's going to come up, right? So people may feel emotional, but they always feel better after, because our intention, as we said earlier in the podcast, is not trauma release, right? No. There's a place for that.
Yeah, because you'll see the screaming and the crying videos from a lot of breathwork practitioners, and there's a time and a place for that.
Yeah. There's no.
That's not what we're trying to do.
A lot of the time, that's when they're doing it in a creek in some cave, and they're channeling the spirits to activate them, right?
Let's take. We did a bit of a beta test. We did a beta test recently, and a young lady did get upset and overwhelmed, right? And she was crying. We went in and checked in. We haven't got to say much. Like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. And the funny thing is, the number of young ladies who have become upset and cried in things that we've done, who come up and give me the warmest hug afterwards and say, thank you so much.
Right.
Like, it's like you'd never think you'd be so sincerely thanked for essentially making someone cry. But the appreciation on their faces, oh my God, I needed that, right? And that even though that's not our intention, people will become upset. Yeah. But it's just about, and we've built this, I've written the safety module, which is the hardest thing to write. And we cover in there just like really simple tactics on how to address that.
I think it's good to bring up. I cry all the time when I breathe. All the fucking time.
There's not a problem with that at all.
Yeah, someone at your wedding yesterday said, as soon as I breathe, I cry. And I go, that's okay.
We set it in just really safe parameters.
Yeah.
Right? So that we're not diving off the deep end.
The bumper plates are on the bowling alley.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think outside of all that, even just for coaches right now, if you're like, yeah, but I don't know, that sounds good. The reality is we're creating a first mover opportunity right here.
Yeah.
It's blue ocean.
Yes.
Right? Blue ocean. It's a first mover opportunity. I think the future of the health and fitness industry is lifestyle, is nutrition, is training. And then you throw breath in there as a certification and something they can do, even if they're just doing it one-on-one, or even if they want to take that on. It's kind of like, I'm sure when you started in the industry, and for me, group fitness classes, that part excites me the most because, especially with the awesome network that I think collectively, we've built over our time in the industry and whatnot, TBO, we're coming to a classroom or a gym class near you very soon, and not just in Australia.
And I guess think of the gym owner or the gym chain or the brand.
Point of difference.
Right, having the faith and the trust in knowing what they're getting. Because right now, if you were a gym or a chain to try and bring a breathwork facilitator in, and especially if you're a chain, to being able to get facilitators in each one, trying to get that uniformity across the board would be extremely difficult. We're here to overcome that problem.
Yeah.
And they're here to get people out there that believe in it and want to make an impact on people's lives at a larger scale. You can be taking classes, doing the classes, and helping so many people that are in there. That
it's extremely rewarding when you get those hugs and those thanks to people and really just sat down and breathed.
And imagine if you're the trainer who's delivering that class, what that does for your business.
Yep, exactly.
It's almost like an opportunity for lead gen at the same time too.
100%, 100%. Well, look, move over a bit, baby. I'm so fucking excited. I'm taking my shoes and socks off. And you guys we're gonna run through a little thing right now.
All right, brother.
Shoes and socks off, you. Come on.
All right.
Cracking everywhere.
All right.
Like we're talking about it, let's just do it. Let's just do it.
All right.
Is there any music we want to play?
Do it raw, I reckon.
We can do it raw.
Okay.
All right. Take an exhale out through your mouth first, please. Pull your next breath in through your nose. Expansion through the belly, up through the chest, and exhaling out with the side. 2 more of those for me, please. In through your nose. Up through your chest, out with the side. Last inhale in through your nose. Pausing at the top. 3, 2, 1. Exhaling with sound. Returning back to purely nasal breathing for me, please. Following your breath in and out your nose, allowing them to be long, slow, deep nasal breaths. Lengthening the breath out, allowing them to be deep. Expansion through the belly, expansion through the chest. And as you start to continue to follow your breath, just allowing your breath to build and grow. Slowly picking up the tempo, the pace, ever so subtly, even just 1% more with every breath in and out. We're going to start to build it up to a point where we must exhale out through your mouth. So allow that breath to build. Giving yourself the next 10 breaths to get yourself to a point where we must exhale out through your mouth. Five more breaths, really starting to build this up. Three more, breathe into your nose and back out again. Allowing the intensity and tension to increase. Last breath into your nose, exhale out through your nose. Next breath into your nose and exhaling out through your mouth. Staying with the same rhythm, we breathe in and out together. Lengthening that exhale out. Three more of those for me, please. 2. Last breath in, pausing at the top. Long exhale out. Taking a long, slow breath into your nose. And as you exhale out through the mouth, allowing the tempo and the ratio to be the same. Looking for a 1-to-1 ratio now. Inhaling for the same rhythm and tempo as you exhale. Beautiful, creating some heart-mind coherence here. Three more for me, please. Last breath in. Full exhale out. And pause. Just allowing yourself to drop into a little breath retention here. Just taking this as an opportunity to drop a little deeper within. As the CO2 starts to rise, allow yourself to get comfortable with that discomfort. Just being present with whatever's there. What we'll transition into here is a few mouth breaths. Still conscious, connected breaths. Allow the pressure to build. Stay with it just for a moment. Allowing yourself to turn a little deeper within, getting ready to breathe in 3, 2, 1, into your mouth, and out again. Staying with that technique and tempo. The rhythm up a little. For 3, 2, last breath in, full breath out, and pause. Dropping a little deeper into this breath retention. We'll follow this with the breath retention at the top. We'll breathe that in through your nose, and as you take that breath in through your nose, squeezing at your pelvic floor, your base, your mula bandha, drawing that energy up your spine to your third eye, scrunching up your forehead, raising your eyebrows, taking your breath in through your nose in 3, 2, 1, taking a full breath in, squeezing and drawing from the bottom to the top on your way up. When you get to the top, pause. Slightly leaning forward, tilting your head, raising your eyebrows, scrunching up your forehead, squeezing and drawing, allowing that energy to circulate and grow. Taking another sip into your nose, giving a light contraction to every muscle in your body. Continue to squeeze and draw. One last sip in through your mouth, filling up your upper chest, strengthen that contraction for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Sound. Pull your next breath into your nose, up through your chest, long exhale out through your mouth. 2 more of those, please. Exhale with sound. Last one, double breath in. Long exhale out. Return back to nasal breathing in your normal breath. And as you sit in your normal breath now, feel free to take a moment to drop. What is one thing you can be grateful for today in your life? When you're ready, in your own time, feel free to move your fingers and toes, your hands and your feet. And blink your eyes open, bring yourself back into the space.
I just fucking drooled everywhere. I'm fucking drooling.
How are we?
Awesome. How do you feel is my question.
It was all tingly, all my mouth and all my fingers and...
What do you reckon, 3 to 5 that was? Maybe? Maybe 3 minutes?
So let's put that, so you feel tingly, but what else do you
I
feel?
don't now,
So,
when you do the certain breaths, I went all tingly all through my, like if you were looking at physical reactions, all tingly all through my lips and face and everything.
Emotionally?
Really grounded, just calm. Calm would be the one word.
So multiple things happening there. A physiological side to open up, right? To drop us into that parasympathetic. Same thing, opening up with purely nasal breathing. As we start to turn that up, staying with the benefits of nasal breathing, but offloading a little bit more CO2 as we start to turn that up. And then to allow it to be a more smoother transition, moving into a breath retention before going into the circular breathing. We're here, we might as well have a little bit more of an experience, which is why we transitioned into that mouth breathing, and then closing that off, downshifting, bring us back into self-regulation, back into a parasympathetic state, so that we can be more present in here.
And then
Shake up the snow
anyone
globe.
can
let
do
land.
it. That was my first breathwork session ever.
Yeah. On a physiological perspective, the tingling sensations.
It's probably just oxygen getting out to your peripheries, right? Because our capillaries are like a single blood cell thick, and they get kind of junked up when we move. Because our lungs like a giant pump that pumps our heart as well. So just it almost gets like fresh air out to the tips of the mangroves, right? Out to the edges. And then
Circulation. You've actually had circulation come up before.
And then with that one there, that was a little quick dose, but like the analogy I use when I'm introducing this to someone is like, we're going to shake up the snow globe of your physiology, hence the tingling and the sensations. Then we let it all land, and you have this really nice calm glow afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you saw with me the drooling and that, and it's on camera, right? But I got sick the last week getting over here. I've been coughing up phlegm, you know, and there's been I think even last night the kind of cough had come back, so I've known there's been a bit to clear out, and yeah, even just then, like obviously didn't do what I did at home, which is when I just let it out in the grass. But yeah, for me it was expelling physically.
Present. I feel, and that's the first time all four of us have breathed together, and the first time that I guided it as well.
Yeah.
And
What did you feel?
I feel very connected and present. We're all in the same frequency here. You know, and a little glassy of your eyes there, you know, and the tingly of the lips. It's kind of like, I needed that breather.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And then your body was like, just, I guess with those, to have that reaction so quickly, right? It's just sort of like, you know, your body is ready for something like this.
We went to go do it this
Right.
morning. We did it the other day, but we went to
Yeah.
go down this morning, but then kids and
When we meditate,
Yeah.
but I find because I sit in like a state like that,
Yeah.
you know, I know you always say I don't practice like
Yeah.
follow a meditation, but when I sit in that through the night feeding, I feel this for me is more not challenging, but like I feel like with the meditation, I kind of sit there very often, even though I don't do a guided one and things like that. So this was.
I think it comes back to what you've
felt
said.
a lot more.
Yeah, well, because it's to your point, like the breath work, it's the gateway to meditation, right? Like the techniques,
It's an energized meditation.
the different, the different things that you do. I think that's, you know, it's funny. Like I remember doing similar things with Joe Dispenza, and he's got obviously all different techniques that he uses, and he would do at the workshop, and you know, you would learn all there, like how to initiate the breath, where to feel the breath, where to hold a breath, how long to hold it for, let it circulate. I really like the one that you did then, you know, with the pineal gland, like kind of coming up there, holding it, kind of locking it in the eye technique. That was something new for me. But then also that second state to it with the chest up at the end. You know, Joe kind of teaches, and actually Robbie, the nerve man, not a nerve man, like, you know, initiating through the anus almost, like, and breathing up that tube. But just the way that you did that with that, and then the lock in there, I felt it really kind of shoot up into that section. And actually that's what triggered the loud sound at the end, because it was like expelling friction that I felt there.
A little bit of a clearing.
Yeah.
It's been a big week for you. It's been a big year for you.
It has. But look, obviously want to thank you guys for kind of coming in today. That was awesome. I know, like, from my standpoint, and Lauren will say her piece, like, grateful to have obviously connected, really grateful for what we're going to be doing together, what we've already started doing behind the background, and to kind of get this out towards the back end of the year and change some fucking lives.
It's the goal. It's the goal.
Great.
Help people.